Yesterday I was out driving around and I noticed the sky was like all kinds of crazy wild colors. There was like green and um, it looked like somebody had painted the clouds on. It was just really very like just painterly. I don't know how else to describe it. Purple and red and orange, and it just changed and like it was like this shifting, changing, just really, really gorgeous sky. And I was sitting in my car and I was listening to a particular song, and the song was making me feel very nostalgic. And I started, I almost cried. It was just really beautiful, and I wanted to take that moment and take a snapshot of it in my memory and just kind of live in it sometimes. Um, so this is an example of something that I would associate with SI, my dominant function. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about SI today and my experience of it as my dominant function. Um, Maybe address some stereotypes associated with SI, um, and just talk about talk about SI. So I think SI kind of gets this reputation in MBTI for being very rule oriented, very organized, methodical, having a very good memory. And while I think all of these things have some truth to them, um, I don't think they're always true. And something that I think often gets overlooked with SI, I think SE gets this reputation for being like a very colorful, like creative function. Um, and I think SI is actually just as colorful and creative. It's all internal. And that can be hard to externalize, but I think that's something that people don't really know about SI is that I feel like I have this very like colorful internal world full of memories and impressions and um, it's it's not as stodgy and boring as some sources make it sound. Um, so there's actually a poem by Wordsworth that I'm gonna read here. It really reminds me of SI. It's the last stanza of I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, and some of you might be familiar with it. It's a pretty well-known poem. But he talks about how he's out in nature and he sees daffodils, and then the last stanza is him sort of reminiscing, and he says, "For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils." Um, so that's, I feel like I kind of associate that with that moment I had yesterday. Um, I could think about that and bring that to memory uh, when I'm, just laying around later when I'm sad or whatever. I can think about that sunset and that beautiful sky and the impression that it made on me. And I think that that word impressions is a better word for introverted sensing than memory. Memory is kind of an MBTI thing, but the word that Jung used was impressions. Um, so for fun, I looked up what is the dictionary definition of the word impression. So there's a few that I thought were interesting. One is an idea, feeling, or opinion about something or someone, especially when formed without conscious thought or on the basis of little evidence. Ooh, little evidence. Roast me. Yeah, I'm constantly just going around like, that person sucks. No evidence for that. No, I'm kidding. Um, that was not that funny. Um, anyway, yeah, I think that is actually somewhat true. I often don't really have a whole lot of like I'll get feelings about things, and maybe this is distinct from like an intuitive, or stronger intuitive type, where they'll like piece together things. But I hear a lot of intuitives, especially introverted intuitives, or introverted people who lead with introverted intuition, talking about getting um, sort of ideas about things, but not being able to fully express why they have that intuition or that thought. But I think for me, um, it's more like, well, let's come back to that. The other definition that I wanted to talk about was, um, it's very simple. It's just a mark impressed on a surface by something, and then the mark or the impression leaves a little dent or something, like someone sitting on a couch or whatever. Um, and I think that is like how I also think about introverted sensing. It's kind of certain things will leave a stronger impression than others, especially the more familiar something is. I think the more readily it's called to mind. Um, and this, just a fun little thing. So I made this painting, and it's actually, I don't know if you can see it that well. The colors don't really show up that well, but this is very like impressionist, I guess. So I actually took like leaves and flowers and stuff and dipped them in paint and like pressed them on the surface here. So it's kind of um, just a bunch of impressions, which is like my mind. um, so yeah, I think because of this, SI DOMs are constantly processing things that happen to us, trying to make sense of things. Where was I going with that? Yeah, even if we don't want to, like, I feel like I will think about things that happen to me, especially things dealing with like past relationships. Like, that stuff just comes back all the time, and um, I'll talk about it at home sometimes. And um, my dad made this comment once, which, funny thing, he's actually an ISTJ, so he has the same dominant function as I do. But I was, and like, there's a lot of stuff that I've gotten over from relationships, but for some reason, it's like my mind just likes to go back, and then each time it refines it a little more, and it's like solidifies, whatever conclusion that I had about something that happened. But my dad made the comment that he's like, "You talk about these dudes all the time, like, haven't you gotten over them?" And I'm like, "Yeah, for the most part." Like, for some reason, I just have this thing. Oh man, I should edit that out. That's just, I feel like that makes me look crazy. Whatever. Um I have some notes here because I can't remember everything that I'm gonna say. My mind, I swear, it's just like a jumble of, like, I don't know. I've been wanting to do this video for ages, and I keep thinking of things and like writing them down, and it's all just very um like PC, like there's nothing that really coheres, and so I just decided to sit down and like ramble with what I got going on right now. I'll think of things later. I'll think of so many things. It's okay though. Moving on. Yeah, so memory. I don't I don't think that SI DOMs necessarily have a good memory for everything. I do think that we have good memories for things that are important to us, for things that happened to us and really made an impression on us. Um, I I have a really good memory for certain things, and then other things, like anything that I read that's uh, like very, if it has a very technical element to it, or there's a lot of like logical explanation going on. Um, yeah, good luck remembering that later, Natalie, because it's not gonna come out right. I have to have it right in front of me in order to explain it to my satisfaction. And I think this kind of baffles my TE valuing parents sometimes. Oh, I think it has more to do with introverted thinking, like my thinking placement, than it does with the introverted sensing. Because I hear INFJs talk about this too. Like my best friend is an INFJ, and I have a few other close friends who are INFJs, and at least two of them have told me that they relate to this, like the needing that like anything very technical, it just doesn't stick in our minds. Um, yeah. Sorry, my sister interrupted me just now. Where was I? Um, yeah. So I think introverted thinking, it's an aspect of my personality that I highly value, and I'll go to a lot of effort um, to make sure that what I'm saying is logical. When I was in school, I was an English major, so I'd read a lot of papers and I got really good at constructing arguments, and it was really fun for me. But that's not typically information that I can just pull off the top of my head. And um, you know, I was actually having a conversation with someone over a year ago, and they brought up an argument to me, and I was like, something about this is just off and weird, and I don't know what it is. And I couldn't figure it out. And it was actually just maybe a week ago that I was laying in bed at night, and I had like rehashed this scenario so many times in my head. I was like, oh, I could have said this, I could have said this. And I finally realized what it was that was bugging me about it. And I came up with, this is what I would have said, but it was like a year later. So, yeah. That person was an ENTP, by the way. Shout out. You guys are the best. I mean that very unsarcastically. I'm mostly just making fun of myself because I can't argue worth a damn. I can't. Debate is not my strong suit. I enjoy listening to a good debate, but I'm probably not gonna jump in with a whole lot. Um, yeah, so I would say I also kind of wanted to talk about the difference between the Myers-Briggs definition of introverted sensing and the Socionics definition, because they have very different takes, but I think they are describing essentially the same kind of person. MBTI really emphasizes memory and yeah, basically memory, routine, tradition, um, and which I actually think is a little bit closer to Jung's original writing, where he's talking about impressions. Socionics gets more into like SI is a very comfort-seeking function, um, and also that SI is very aware of their internal state, and aware of their bodies. And I don't know that this is always necessarily true either. I feel like I can fluctuate wildly on this. Like, I can be very aware of my sensations. I think part of it is being just like a highly sensitive person. Um, and I think also just the fact that I have some chronic health issues and I've had to become more aware of how I feel, so that I can gauge things like reactions to foods that I might have, or um, just just being aware of things so I can stay on top of my taking care of my health. But I don't think SI is always like that. I know that if I get really caught up in something, it's almost like I'm not aware of my body um, as much. I know this varies, I think, for different people too. I can't really go for extended periods of time without food. Like, I know a lot of intuitives talk about, oh yeah, I forgot to eat today, or like, um, stayed up till 2 a.m. and got 3 hours of sleep, and I'm good. Like, that's not me. I really have to like get enough sleep to be functional. I have to eat because I will be distracted if I don't. I won't be able to work on anything. But like my ISFJ my brother's girlfriend is an ISFJ, and she frequently tells me things like, "Oh, I forgot to eat today because I got so busy doing things," and that's something that I don't necessarily relate to as much, but um, for what it's worth, I think both systems kind of have stereotypical ideas of introverted sensing. And actually, that's something I want to talk about more, probably in another video, because I can't think of all my points that I wanted to make right now. But there's more. There's more up here on the Socionics and Myers-Briggs differences because they're very interesting. Um, I think that is all I have for right now. So, peace out. I'm so awkward, I'm sorry.